Thank you for listening to the Golden Hour Drip podcast with me, Logan Lee Miller. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Golden Hour Drip podcast. I'm your host, Logan Lee Miller. It is so good to be here on this beautiful Friday. Oh my gosh, I love the weekend. You guys know this, okay? And we are already at the end of September, which is absolutely insane crazy. Did anybody else feel like September was a blink of an eye? I don't know. For me, I feel like September flew past, but I also got so much done and so much accomplished. And I'm really proud of the growth that I had in September. And I actually was on TikTok the other day and I was talking about how when September, because of, I don't know, the signs, the moon, the stars, all of the things, that September is actually like a decision-making month. And it's like normal to feel this way. If you believe in cosmos, great. If you don't, hey, cool, whatever. I was productive in September and I'm feeling so happy, so good. And I achieved and accomplished a couple of the goals that I set forth for myself. And I'm trying not to have like any sort of like connotation with those goals. Like, I completed them and how the outcome falls, like that's how the outcome falls. I'm trying not to assign value to it. Like, oh gosh, like I worked so hard and this like isn't turning out. I'm instead looking to it of, wow, like I set out to accomplish some of the things. And instead of beating myself up for it not being perfect or not like turning out exactly how I thought, I love evolution. And I think it's really powerful to allow things to develop and change and not holding on to a sense of like how it should be. So I am really, really excited that I achieved things before the end of September, right? And with like my checklist and how I do my goals is like, each month I will have like some goals that stay the same. Other times, like once I accomplish that goal, it gets taken off my list. And I really want December to be like a chill month, like for it to be really just mindful and present. And so I'm really trying to set myself up for that. And with all of my free time, because I achieved my goal, I allowed myself to have a Tuesday. This past Tuesday, it was my day. And I allowed myself to just do exactly what I wanted to do. More of those like activities that aren't tied to like social media, tied to work, tied to anything like that. These were the hobbies that make me feel present, but there's no monetary gain to them. I made homemade tomato soup, which I've never done before. So I got 14 pounds of tomatoes from the grocery store and I cooked them, boiled them down for a couple of hours. I strained them, the skins, the seeds. I blended it up. I made tomato soup with sourdough grilled cheese. It was amazing. I got to sit down and enjoyed some Mormon Wives, but even further than that, I had gone and picked out a book from the Barnes and Nobles. It's very close to where I teach yoga at. And I told myself on Monday, like if I achieved and accomplished what I set out to on Monday, that after work and before teaching my class, I could stop in Barnes and Noble, pick out any book I wanted, and I was going to spend Tuesday reading some of this book. Like that was a treat for me. And I picked out a book off of like some, like it's crazy how things sort of align for you. On Saturday, I was teaching a class and one of our trade individuals, so they like trade cleaning the studio for a membership. One of the women there, her name is JJ. She's so sweet, so spunky. I love her with all of my heart. But we were chatting. I had gotten there early on Saturday. No, Saturday I took a class and then I had some like lead time between like when I taught the class. I had like 45 minutes of just like hanging out. And so we were talking and I was obviously like very sweaty from the yoga class I took, like that actually exercised in, and I wasn't going to shower until after I taught my class. Some people might think that's gross. Perfectly fine. But even teaching, like I get a little hot and sweaty because the room is heated. I'm walking around, I'm talking, like I'm assisting, and it gets hot. So I didn't want to have to shower twice. And I was meeting my friend for breakfast afterwards. I didn't want to be hot, sweaty, sticky, all of the things. So I was just like hanging out. My face is beet red. I like took my my shower items into the locker room, moved my vehicle up a little bit closer to the doors because when I got there for class, it was jam packed. So I have some time, right? And I noticed that my lips, although my entire body is like so sweaty, that my lips were like a little chapped. And so I put on my Lana lips. Okay. I love Lana lips with all my heart. I have been using this consistently for the past 2 years. Strawberry is my favorite. And I've gone through multiple tubes, like multiple empties. Okay. It is my favorite. And I put some on without thinking about it. I came to the front desk and I was chatting, and JJ goes, "Oh, you put on a little lip gloss." I was like, no, it's not lip gloss. It's actually lanolin oil. And she's like, she started to laugh. She's like, "Do you like podcasts?" I was like, "Yeah, I love podcasts." Like, she didn't know that I had a podcast. But I was like, "Yeah, I love listening to podcasts." And she's like, "Perfect. You should listen to this podcast. It's called Can I Be a Bitch for a Minute?" Or Can I Be a Bitch for a Second is the title of the episode. And oh my gosh, I can't think of who actually was the host of it. Oh my gosh. It was like a gossip, sort of podcast. I listened to the one episode. I'm so sorry, but hopefully if you can search like, "Can I Be a Bitch for a Moment?" It will pop up. I remembered. It's, normal gossip, or, it's like that. It's everyday gossip, or, normal people gossip, something of that like train of thought where it's like normal everyday conversation gossip. And she's like, "You need to check out this episode. I think it's episode 3. I said, "Great." Pulled it up, saved it to my queue. After I was done teaching my class, after I showered, after I met with my friend for breakfast, I was headed home and I put on the podcast episode. And this podcast episode was talking about a knitting group in a close-knit community. And it was set during the time of 2020. And so the main character of the story, because it was a submission, it was a submission of a friend. So it'd be like if I knew someone who, like I knew the office gossip or whatever, it wasn't like my gossip, but I like shared the gossip. It was like that. So it wasn't like first party who was telling the story. It was telling the story on the behalf of her friend. And then the host was reading it for the podcast episode. And this girl had gone back home, this girl wanted a suburb because the cities were like too smothering, all the things, right? You couldn't really do much. And so went to a suburb to like escape all the other things. And she was looking for friends. So she went to like this little knitting group, and it was hosted at a woman's home. And the woman, character A, let's call her Sarah. Sarah goes to this like home and she's looking for friends. She has her yarn. She's not like a very good knitter. She picked up some items. She wants to make friends. That's like the main thing of the story. So she gets there, she's welcomed, and she brought like a snack or something, and the hostess was like, "Oh, are these gluten-free?" And she's like, "No, they're not." And she's like, "Oh, I'll put like a little sign out just to let everybody know." And then she like dropped off wine, and she's like, "Oh, I want to," like the hostess was like, "I'll save this for later. I'll save this for myself." Ultimately, like she didn't want to put out the wine. That's the caliber of people at this knitting group. Like they're very high class. Like the woman who was hosting had it like catered, all the things. And so she's like, "All right," like feeling a little nervous. And she sits down And with people who are passionate about their like things, they are knowledgeable and they want to share it, right? Like I know that for myself. Like I know how to make sourdough. I know how to can things. Like I want to share that. So if anybody ever asks me like, hey, can I make sourdough with you? Absolutely. Can you show me how to can turkey? Absolutely. Can you show me how to garden? Can you show like anything I know how to do? Like I'd be happy to teach someone else. Right. And so the knitters are like, oh, what are you working on? And she shows them and they're like, oh, you can't like acrylic yarn. That's really bad. Acrylic yarn has microplastics and it's like not good quality, all the things, right? And rightfully so. I mean, acrylic, it is what it is. A lot of our clothing is made from, I don't even know, I thrifted this, but you know what I'm saying? Like they were nicely saying like the products because she was struggling. Oh, you need better needles. Oh, you need, better yarn. And because they're like high caliber women, they're like sharing these items. Oh, let me give you some of my yarn. Here's knitting needles that are like better for you, right? And she like gets to work on her little project and she's having fun. But ultimately, like this first meeting, they're like, you're not using the right stuff. They're very sweet, very kind. They share with it. And if you don't know, the tie to the lip gloss that I was wearing, lanolin, is from like sheep. And so at the like part of the story, she like knows that her lips were chapped. And so she pulled out her Carmex and was like putting Carmex on. And the host was like, oh, like, let me get you something a little bit better. It's lanolin. It's natural from animals because they have wool and they're knitting and all the things, right? And she's like, wow, this lanolin oil is way better. Anyways, they keep trying to elevate her and like pull her into like this higher caliber of knitter, right? Like they're being nice, they're being kind. And she likes it. She keeps going. She's making the friends. Come to find out, like the hostess goes viral for these coasters, and the coasters say something like cheeky, like men's tears. And so during the pandemic, I mean, everybody was buying anything all the time. Like I remember purchasing things on Amazon because you couldn't really go out and shop, right? And so the main character, Sarah, she had a sister who was like kind of an influencer. And so the hostess was like, oh, like, let me send these to your sister. And she's like, well, I'll ask my sister if she wants them. And then if she does, I'll pass them along. So she mails her this PR package to Sarah's home to see if she wants to like pass it on to her sister. And she opens the PR package and it is acrylic wool. It is not the natural wool that the hostess had been putting out on social media, that she was spinning the wool from the sheep and making the yarn and then making the coaster. No, like this was acrylic wool. And now that she like has the product in her hand and she does pass it along to her sister posts about it, all the things, good. There's one, she gets like invited to go and help package some of the orders, like the cards or whatever for the packages. And she decides to do some sneaking, goes into her office and notices all of this like Joanne fabric acrylic yarn. When she first came, was completely like, oh my gosh, like you can't have acrylic yarn, all the things, right? And she was like, oh, like Miss Thing is selling acrylic coasters, saying that they're wool coasters. And she gets on a like knitting website and basically like she had taken some photos, not blasted her. It was just like kind of blasted her. And then left. Like she moved back to the city. She left this community and let them just like fluster. The hostess was obviously like thrown from her throne. Anyways, basically like didn't stay for the aftermath. And I had to laugh so hard because I was like, oh my gosh, like lanolin oil. Like it was a good story. Like the podcaster is a great storyteller. I really enjoyed episode 3. Again, I believe it's like normal gossip or people, I'll put it down below. But I had to laugh. And so that was like on Monday. And Saturday. That was Saturday. And so Monday rolls around and I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna reward myself and go to the bookstore. And so I'm walking around and I'm not really sure what kind of book I want. I'm just like open to everything. And I'm looking up and down the aisles, looking at all the like new releases, the mysteries. They had like some Halloween thrillers. Heck to the no, you cannot catch me dead. Anyways, so I'm like walking around finding all the things. And I see a book like at Barnes and Noble. There's like some books that are like by their binds, like you just see the end of the book. And then there's some books that have like their face forward. And so I'm looking. And one of the books, they like flipped forward, obviously like promoting it in some way because it's like, oh, this is the entire cover instead of just the book bind. And it says close knit. And my brain is already thinking like about Saturday. And I didn't know what book I wanted. I was open to any and all books. And I just knew that I'd find something that I wanted because it was my reward. I'm looking. And I see this book. And I'm like, And literally on my drive to yoga, I was feeling super aligned. I saw a yellow bug after like listening to a podcast it was a TikTok, listening to a TikTok that I'd sent my dad, and she like drove a yellow bug. And then on my way, it was like an hour before, saw this TikTok about a yellow bug. On the way to class, I saw a yellow bug. And then I don't know. It was like a couple occurrences that I was like feeling so aligned. And so I took this book and I was like, okay, this is the book I'm supposed to buy. Close knit. Okay. Put it in my cart, purchased it. Tuesday, because I had accomplished my goals, I had my tomato soup, I had my sourdough, and I settled into bed with my book and I started reading it. It was nothing and everything that I expected. So again, I'm not going to spoil the book. You should read it. It was nothing like I expected. I thought, I wasn't sure what it was. I felt aligned. I felt like this is the book that I needed to pick up because of the knitting group. And I pulled it off the shelf and I started reading. And it's about a girl who feels like kind of mediocre, but she doesn't really have a lot of friends, but she has her mom and she has her mom's friends, and they are part of a knitting club. And I sobbed during this book, like multiple times, crying, because how beautiful it is to have like people who care about you and who will show up for you. Like, it does not matter when, it does not matter what sacrifices they have to make. Like, they're going to show up for you and they are going to like double down. And I read it. I started it Friday night, I started it Tuesday night. I finished it Wednesday morning as I was having my coffee. That's how good this book was. And at first, like, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, because for me, like, I like motivational, I like aspirational. And this was just like a very common girl next door book, but not like the sexy girl next door. Like, it was a little town in Scotland. And it very much had themes of feeling like your life is not as beautiful or as exciting as you thought it would be. And kind of just like settling into, like what you want your life to be, and friendship. And I really did enjoy it. And by the end of the book, like, there was a little romance in it, but at the end of the book, with everybody, just like the support, I loved it, guys. I really did. And I'm feeling so much alignment with like how things are panning out with like the Lana Lips, the knitting podcast. Like, she didn't have to, like, JJ had no idea how that would like spiral to something else. Sometimes you're going to have people like put in your life and you're not sure why, or the moment or the experience or whatever. And then to lead up to this book and just feeling like community is something that I have definitely craved And because the book was like set in 2020, there was a lot of feelings from 2020 as well. And it just reminded me on why I have the Golden Gal Network and why I created a meetup group and why friendship is so important. So definitely pick up the book. If you're in the Kansas City area, join the Golden Gal Network. You can find us on Instagram. I'm hosting, I just announced to our email list, our Golden Gala. Mark your calendars for November 9th. And I'm just feeling so aligned, so loved, and appreciative of the friendship and the family that I have in my life. So definitely go pick up Close Knit. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.